What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Mock Draft Monday, and today we're going to be doing things a little differently. Normally, I would be putting up a new mock draft with my, what I would do mock draft, where I would be spending each pick for each team. But the reality is the team needs and my evaluations on the first round players have not changed much over the last 2 weeks. So I'm just going to say, if you want to know what I would do if I was each team, everything I said for the most part in Mock Draft 2.0 still applies. Some things have changed and maybe a couple picks would be different, but I'm going to wait at least another week before I make my own mock draft. What I'm going to do today is something fun, something that's getting more and more popular out there on the internet as really NFL draft content is growing and growing, is a reactive mock draft, basically looking at someone else's mock draft from a different lens and kind of talking about my own opinions on if those teams were to make those picks, because a lot of these are picks that you just won't be seeing in my own mock drafts, so it's going to give me an opportunity to talk about potentially landing spots for things that aren't really on my radar, but other people think are possible. And today we're going to be taking a look at Bucky Brooks's mock draft, and Bucky is an NFL analyst for NFL.com, and I like Bucky a lot. I like to listen to his podcast with Daniel Jeremiah, and I find him very intelligent. I like how dialed in he is. But the one thing with Bucky Brooks, and the reason I'm picking this mock draft, is I actually find myself disagreeing with Bucky quite a bit. He is very dialed in my opinion, to the relationships aspect of current NFL players and NFL prospects. And I find myself disagreeing with Bucky Brooks quite a bit from, whether it's what he sees on film or his stance on players. But that does not mean that I dismiss what he says. I think not enough people take to heart the things that people say that they disagree with, and kind of look at those things and say, okay, why does he think this way? I disagree with that. I think he's seeing this wrong, but what is he seeing, and maybe am I missing something? And Bucky Brooks is a guy that I like to listen to because his opinions do differ a lot, and I do respect his opinion. So this is going to be fun to kind of look at this from a different angle, see what Bucky sees, and talk about some of these other alternative options for the draft. So I'm excited for this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, of course. And I do want to say real quick, in case you missed it, I did record the Fully Inflated Football podcast for the week. I did it live this week, so you may or may not have gotten a notification. It may or may not show up in your feed, but if you just go to my channel and go to like my live streams or my most recent uploads, you will find it in there. So make sure you check it out. I'm really proud of the first live podcast we ever did here on the channel. But anyway, let's get started. Obviously, Bucky's going to have Trevor Lawrence going number one, and this is a predictive mock from Bucky, but it is, of course, going to be, at this stage, very in tune to what he feels about these players, kind of similar to my mock drafts. So number two, he has Justin Fields here, number two, and I disagree with this quite strongly. I have a very strong opinion that Justin Fields and Zach Wilson are kind of in different classes as prospects, and I think the Jets are either going to go with Wilson or stick with Sam Darnold, because when I look at Justin Fields' problems as a passer, they're very similar to Sam Darnold's as a passer. But just Fields versus Wilson, to me, Wilson just has a much deeper understanding of the passing game when it comes to going through his progressions, when it comes to throwing with leverage away from players, and just processing coverages and not making mistakes and all of that. I just think Zach Wilson's tape, and if you have not considered signing up to my Patreon, you can really see me dive into these things in my film rooms up there on Patreon and see that kind of evidence of why I feel this way. But to me, with Fields, he is at this point in time much more of that first read quarterback, which is not ideal. It's something he's going to have to work on. It doesn't mean he can't get there. But when you compare that and the amount of development that Fields needs to show, paired with, to me, Zach Wilson actually a much more sudden athlete, better pocket presence, quick twitch athleticism. Yes, Fields is a better runner with the ball in his hands. And then you say their accuracy, very comparable, arm talent, very comparable. To me, it's just not all that close. And in my opinion, I think that's where the Jets are going to come in as well. So I obviously very strongly disagree with this. Now, Bucky Brooks really liked Justin Herbert last year. I did not like Justin Herbert. So I could end up being wrong here, absolutely. And Fields could prove me wrong and show some immense development at the next level. But as college prospects, I am putting Zach Wilson well ahead of Justin Fields and would be very critical of the Jets if they made this move. So then number 3 here, Ja'Marr Chase to the Miami Dolphins. I'm fine with this pick. I really don't have any major criticisms other than the fact that currently Penei Sewell is my number 1 player in this class, and I am really in love with the idea of what Sewell can do for that offensive line as far as upgrading the right tackle by sliding Jackson over there, and then you upgrade at right guard by kicking Hunt inside. So I'm kind of in love with that idea, but more playmakers is good for Tua, and maybe you can get an offensive lineman with the later pick here. But as we sit here today, I'd be fine with that. I would totally understand it. I wouldn't be critical. It's just not the pick I would make. And then the Falcons landing Zach Wilson at 4. This would be a huge steal, in my opinion. You could shop Matt Ryan sooner rather than later if you got Zach Wilson, but you have a quarterback in front of him to make sure that Wilson is ready to go. This would be, to me, like the steal of the draft. If anyone gets Wilson anywhere other than the second pick in this draft, I think it'd be an incredible steal. So based on how the board is playing out here, absolute no-brainer for the Falcons. And as Bucky says here, Matt Ryan is going to be 36 next year. The Bengals landing Penei Sewell at number 5. That's a no-brainer. Best player in the class as of this point in time for me. Joe Burrow needs that protection. The only question there is, are you kicking Jonah Williams probably to right tackle in this situation, which I believe he played at some point at his time in Alabama. So that would probably work. But I would keep Sewell at left. And yeah, I mean that's probably best case scenario there for the Falcons and the Bengals. No disagreement there if the board were to play out this way. Then for the Eagles here at number 6, going Kyle Pitts. So at this point in the mock, this was before the Carson Wentz rumors, so kind of not a lot of quarterback consideration here for the Eagles. I think they could get into conversations to move up for a quarterback, to draft a quarterback here, but based on when he did this, he has them taking Kyle Pitts. And I do understand the thinking here that Kyle Pitts, yes, they have a deep tight end room, but he's not really a tight end. He's more of a playmaker, slot receiver out. He's going to line up everywhere. The thing is, that is Zach Ertz. So, yes, Ertz is entering the final year of his contract, but is this the best use of resources when you do have Zach Ertz currently on the team? In my opinion, no. I would rather go with really any of the other receivers here, but I suppose I understand the thought process here. Kyle Pitts is a top 3 player in this class, but I would pretty strongly disagree with that making sense for the Eagles, and I've seen a lot of Eagles fans agree with that sentiment. And then you have the Detroit Lions grabbing Jalen Waddle, which I was talking about in my top 10 receivers video last week. That would not surprise me in the least bit if Waddle was the first receiver off the board. Happened last year with Henry Ruggs, and I could see it happening again. With Stafford gone, is Jalen Waddle the kind of receiver that they need? I don't know about that. The Lions are in a really tough spot. I could see them going in any direction. I wouldn't be like jumping for joy with this pick, but it does make some sense in that Waddle may have the highest upside of any receiver in this class. But ultimately, the Lions are in a weird spot. I do agree that they should not be taking a quarterback. I like Trey Lance, but he needs a great surrounding situation, and I just don't think the Lions are in a stable enough position to develop a Trey Lance, who ends up going next year to the Panthers. And this is going to be a great example of why it's good to do this mock draft. Because I did not have the Panthers taking Trey Lance in my last What I Would Do mock draft. And my explanation for that is that currently the Panthers run a very methodical passing game. Joe Brady runs one of these offenses where it's very important to be able to go through your progressions quickly and make the correct reads, as opposed to, say, a Shanahan offense that is more of a long developing play that uses the scheme to set up big chunk plays on first reads. And to me, Trey Lance played in that system at North Dakota State, and that is the best case scenario for Trey Lance, is he can go to a Minnesota, a San Francisco, one of these teams that has that scheme in place, and the Carolina Panthers do not. And I understand Joe Brady may or may not be there next year, but that's kind of bad process to draft assuming that your offense is going to change in a year. So the other thing here is, are they going to have the patience to sit him for a full year with Teddy Bridgewater there. I don't know. It's not the worst spot here, and I would give Trey Lance a decent chance if he landed in Carolina, but schematically, I would have some concerns. You really would need to expedite that processing there for Trey Lance, or do some other things schematically to simplify things for him, because he really is one of the more raw first-round quarterback prospects we've seen. Now, he does make good decisions when things are schemed up easily on that first read, but from a schematic standpoint, it's just a little bit of a hard sell for me. That is why I didn't take him for the Panthers, though I completely understand the sentiment. And at the end of the day, I would applaud the Panthers for having the guts to make this pick, because at some point you've got to swing for that high upside at the quarterback position, especially when you're in the Panthers situation, where I do think they're doing some nice things culturally to set up that long-term success. But there are some reasons why I would be hesitant with Trey Lance in that Carolina system. Then we have the Denver Broncos at 9, grabbing Patrick Surtain. I fully agree with this pick. I've made this pick myself. It makes sense. Broncos run a ton of zone coverage, and I love Patrick Surtain. He is clearly my number one corner in this class, so I agree with Bucky Brooks here. Not everyone has Surtain as their number one corner. Excited to see what he runs. I think a 40 time is really important for him. I'd be pretty bummed if he did not run it, whether the scores are fully accurate or not. But I love Patrick Surtain, his technique, his physicality. I do think he's quicker and faster than he gets credit for at his size. I'm a good 40-yard dash time away from making Patrick Surtain one of the highest rated corners I've had since I've been doing this. Then the Dallas Cowboys grabbing Caleb Farley here at number 10. No trades in this scenario, so I do understand it. I had them trading down and then taking Caleb Farley about 4 picks later. I'm not in on Caleb Farley as a top 10 player. Once some of these more blue chip type of, blue chip, more sure prospects and high value prospects are gone, I'm ready to take a Caleb Farley. But if you could trade down here, that's great. But obviously, it's an excellent scheme fit. He fits the Seattle 3 scheme with that length, those zone route recognition abilities that he has. So it would be a great fit, total scheme fit. So I'm with Bucky on that one. Then he's got Gregory Rousseau here to the Giants. So I do like Gregory Rousseau. There is a problem here, though. The Giants run a 3-4 defense. And in this system, Gregory Rousseau would either A, be being asked to play stand-up outside linebacker. That, I think, is the worst thing you could do for Rousseau, because he's so tall. When you have him play outside linebacker, and he's not like overly quick and overly explosive, though he is explosive for his size, that would really, to me, limit his impact. The other option here is you have him gain weight and play that defensive end, but they've got Lawrence, they've got like 4 or 5 really good interior defensive linemen there. He would be, kind of a Leonard Williams type of player. I just don't see the need for this player right here. I don't see the scheme fit here, so I don't think the value's that bad. I am willing to take a chance on Gregory Rousseau. I think he gets a ton of crap because his film is very raw, but his film that we have is freshman tape. Like, dial up freshman tape for the top edge rushers in the country right now, and I bet they're not that much better than Gregory Rousseau. So I understand the excitement for Gregory Rousseau, but the scheme fit here and the need for that scheme fit really doesn't make sense, because those outside linebackers there, you're looking at those bendy, Belichickian sort of hybrid edge players, and the defensive ends, yes, if Rousseau gained weight, could actually be pretty good in that scheme, but it's just not a need for them. So I pretty strongly disagree with that pick. I think receiver, defensive, linebacker, edge, an actual edge rusher. I think Joseph Asai would be a much better pick in this scheme than Gregory Rousseau, even though Rousseau is currently my number 1 edge player. So very strong disagreement with Bucky on this one. I don't see very many situations where the Giants make this pick right here or why it makes any sense. Then J.C. Horn here to the Niners. I'm not quite as high on Horn yet, though I like him. I would say positional demand and really positional supply and the demand of that position makes sense. The scheme fit makes sense. Likely going to lose Richard Sherman, who's a decent comp for Joe Horn. So, I could totally see it. I would give this a good pick. Great scheme fit, fits the need. Let's move on. The Chargers grabbing Rashawn Slater at pick 13. And this is something I do respect about Bucky Brooks. His running mate here, Daniel Jeremiah, is now extremely high on Rashawn Slater. Having him above Penei Sewell, who's my number one player in this class right now. So I like that Bucky is saying, you know what, I disagree with you. I'm not going to confine to your opinions on this player here and put him into the top 10. And this is much closer to where I am on Rashawn Slater. And if the Chargers got him at 13 here, I think that's about where I'm comfortable starting to talk about Slater. Is 10 to 20, I think is great value for him. He's a really good player. If someone took him in the top 10, that'd be fine. But this is a home run pick for the Chargers. I think you plug him in at left tackle and let him go to work. And I really don't have any disagreement there. I think the value is great. Could totally see this pick. So good prediction there from Bucky. And then I really strongly disagree with this pick here as well. But that's because I don't really see it with Kwity Paye. I actually didn't have him in the first round of my last mock draft, and that has not changed. I don't think Kwity Paye is a first-round prospect. If he is, you're talking about a guy you're taking in the back 6 picks of a draft, of the first round. So Kwity Paye is, to me, not he lacks some of those elite traits from the pass rushing position. He doesn't have absurd get-off. He doesn't have unbelievable play strength. He has, to me, about one good pass rush move. But I don't really see the elite upside here in Kwity Paye. And for the Vikings, who actually have some of that upside in a DJ Wonnum, they have a very similar player to Kwity Paye already on roster in Ofedi Odenigbo. Assuming you are getting Danielle Hunter back, I think that Mike Zimmer has his confidence in his ability to develop a DJ Wonnum that showed some signs. You've got a starting caliber player in Odenigbo. I just don't see the fit for Kwity Paye, who to me is kind of this good player. I think he's going to be a starting caliber player and could be a nice long-term starter here. But at the 14th pick, that's way too rich for me. You also don't have a second-round pick here. If you're the Vikings, you traded that pick for another edge rusher. So you're spending really the top 2 picks in your draft on Kwity Paye because you've created that need after the whole kind of flop with Yannick Ngakoue. So I don't think it's a good use of resources. I don't think it's a great fit. It is a good scheme fit. It's definitely the kind of edge that Zimmer likes, but I would really strongly dislike this pick for the Minnesota Vikings. I'd rather trade down, draft a guard, or go with really a lot of other positions. You could go, guard is the huge need, but they need defensive tackle. I would rather go with a Barmore, or hell, I would even rather take the UCLA defensive tackle than Kwity Paye. So I really don't like this pick. This would be one of my least favorite picks of the draft so far, along here with the Giants grabbing Rousseau and definitely the pick here, Justin Fields to the Jets. So let's keep moving. The Patriots grabbing Micah Parsons at 15. Wow. I mean, my comp for him is I always struggle with his name because there was, in the NFC South, you had Levante David. You had, all these David and Davises between the Saints, Demario Davis, Levante David, and then you had, for the Panthers, Thomas Davis. Just that combination of linebackers just always screws me up. But anyway, Demario Davis is my comp for Micah Parsons. Big body, thumping middle linebacker, decent coverage skills, but not overly quick, and a fantastic blitzer. I think Micah Parsons is going to be one of the best blitzing linebackers in the NFL the second he gets drafted. Just rare burst and power and bend as a blitzer. In a lot of ways, like Devin White, like that. So Parsons is incredible. He's a guy that does have some concerns off the field. The Patriots are the definition of evaluating a guy's football character as opposed to just their character in general. If they've had some question marks off the field, as long as they're going to show up, be able to stay on the field, and be great practicers and high work ethic guys, they don't really carry what else you've done. So Micah Parsons, to me, fits that mold. I think this would be a total steal. He very well has a chance to be a top 5 player in this class. This is a bit of a slip, but this, to me, is becoming a very real situation with some of the question marks and stuff that's going into his off-the-field drama. I don't think he falls out of the first round, but schematically this makes a ton of sense. You bring him back next to Dont'a Hightower, that linebacking group with Ushi and Winovich and they've got just crazy depth there. Anthony Jennings was great too. So I mean, you got this influx of youth there with that linebacker position that Belichick's gonna scheme the crap out of these guys. So I like Micah Parsons as a scheme fit a lot. Totally see the need. That'd be an A+ pick for me. I mean, that's kind of a wow pick. The only other thing is, what are you doing at quarterback here? Because Mac Jones still not off the board. So maybe you're trading for a Mariota or something like that. I don't know. But and receiver is still a huge need. But I do think you can get a receiver in the second round. In a world where they found a free agent quarterback, I like this pick a lot. Cardinals grabbing Devontae Smith, falling to 16 here. That's a pretty big fall for Devontae Smith. I think a couple of these picks here are a little out there with Waddle and Pitts up top there that lead to Devontae Smith falling. There are some concerns about that size and the physicality that he's going to bring to the next level, but I compare him to Stephon Diggs. I don't see him falling this far. I would say that's pretty damn unlikely. But, I mean, if the Cardinals could get him, that is the exact type of receiver they need. They need a running mate to DeAndre Hopkins, a guy that can be that separator for Kyler Murray, a guy that can be a vertical threat on the outside, a guy that can come in, play some slot. I mean, that would be incredible. We did see Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb falling a bit last year, so it's not out of the realms of possibility, especially given Smith's kind of size concerns. But, again, pretty unlikely. Then the Raiders, I don't like this pick at all. The Raiders taking J.O.K. I don't like this pick one bit. You just paid the undersized linebacker from the Rams, Corey Littleton, a ton of money, and Nick Kwiatkowski was awesome. You're drafting a non-starter here with the 17th pick. That's a problem. He would start in base defense, but you're only running base defense 20-30% of the time. So you're drafting a guy that's going to play 15 snaps a game for the worst defense in the NFL at 17. I can't get behind that, man. I think that's a pretty damn bad pick. I think that's a pretty serious lack of understanding for the needs for the Las Vegas Raiders here from Bucky Brooks. The value's not that bad. I don't see JOK as a top 20 player myself. But, yeah, that's a pretty freaking bad pick, as is this one here. I would say these two, I'm really against Bucky Brooks' mock draft here. Drafting a running back here at 18 if you're the Miami Dolphins doesn't make sense to me. Your offensive line stinks. You went with another receiver earlier. I don't like this pick one bit. You have not fixed the offensive line at all in a great offensive line class. Why the hell would you take Najee Harris here when you've still got a high second? You have, 2 second-round picks here. You can maybe even get Najee Harris in the second round. If you don't, grab Williams out of UNC or grab some of these other guys in this class. I think this is a miserable pick. This is not a team in position to draft a running back, and I think this is a severe overvaluing of that position. I love Najee Harris. He's currently the second best player on my big board, quote-unquote, but this is not the spot for Najee Harris. Then the football team gets Mac Jones. I think 19th would be, at this point in time, that's a fall for Mac Jones. We're seeing the demand with all these teams trying to get quarterbacks right now. I think Mac Jones doesn't get past 15. I think, in reality, the football team, where this is a great fit. I love this. I think this secures them as a playoff contender next year. I think Mac Jones is a day one starter that can be something like a Jimmy Garoppolo, a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. He lacks some of those traits to be an elite player, but I love his processor, and I love his pocket movement that he doesn't get enough credit for. So I would love this pick for the football team. Not a high upside pick, maybe a player that 4 or 5 years from now you're looking to upgrade that position, but for a team that's ready to win with a great defense, an offensive line that's actually not that bad here for Mac Jones, you maybe add a receiver in free agency. That could really, really make the football team a scary team next year. Although you did just miss on a pocket passer in Dwayne Haskins, so you're hoping that that's not a repeat. But I like that pick a lot, and I'd be surprised if they can get him at 19. But if they can, that's a great pick. Bears grabbing Elijah Vera Tucker here at 20. I don't like this pick. I think Vera Tucker is a good player. I'm not quite on the hype here on him as this top 20 player, even as a first-round player. I mean, Christian Darrisaw, by the way, still there. And you can find guards later. The Bears have Cody Whitehair in place. You have a center in James Daniel. I just don't like this pick really at all. I would take Christian Darrisaw. I would rather have Cosme from Texas. I'm not behind that. That's too high for me. I do think Vera Tucker is a guard and the positional value just isn't there. I think he's a good player. I think he's a day one starter, or at least pretty quickly can be a starter. But Vera Tucker right now, actually currently my fourth best guard in this class. So I'm both lower on Vera Tucker and think that that's a bad allocation of resources for the Bears, who still at this point in time don't have a quarterback, by the way. Indianapolis Colts taking Christian Darrisaw. If this happens for the Colts, you are just popping champagne. I still don't know who's playing quarterback for the Colts, but if you were able to get Christian Darrisaw, who is a top 15 player in this class, an excellent tackle prospect, he's young, physical freak. I mean, between Darrisaw and Rashawn Slater, these guys are both really similar, really good high upside prospects. So I like this pick a lot for the Colts. It'd be a slam dunk. I don't think it would happen, but you never know. Titans grabbing Azeez Ojulari is fine. He is almost an identical player to Harold Landry. I think when you have two guys that can't convert speed to power, that is a problem. Just watch the Super Bowl. The way that they pushed the pocket from that edge position was really, really important for the Bucs from that 3-4 defense. And I like the idea of having an Azeez Ojulari, but when you already have Harold Landry, I think that's too much speed, not enough power. The guy I'm looking at here is Joseph Asai, who is an unbelievable scheme fit. I compare him to Brian Orakpo, who crushed it here in Tennessee. He's got some of that power. He's played that 3-4 outside linebacker position. He can do some of that coverage stuff that they're going to ask him to do. I wouldn't like this pick if they passed on Joseph Asai and took Azeez Ojulari, who's a good prospect, but I think much higher of Joseph Asai there. Jets taking Travis Etienne, garbage, absolute garbage. Between the Jets and the Dolphins here, Bucky, I think you'd maybe get run out of town. If you're taking a running back, if you're the Jets and the Dolphins, who have, in this situation, not taking any offensive linemen, it's terrible. It's terrible drafting. I would demolish these teams if they made these picks. I love Etienne. I love Najee Harris. They're both top 5 players in this class, independent of positional value, but that's the problem, is the frickin' positional value. This would be an awful pick. You're taking Justin Fields, a boomer bust prospect, not giving him any receivers or any offensive line help. Good luck with that plan, Bucky Brooks. See ya. Pittsburgh Steelers, Nick Bolton. I actually haven't eval'd Nick Bolton yet. That's probably on me. This is, I'm glad to see Bucky really likes him, because I need to go and watch Nick Bolton. So maybe I end up loving him, and he'd make a good running mate for Devin Bush. The Steelers don't have a ton of needs, but with some center prospects available in this situation, Creed Humphrey, I've been saying for a couple years that the Steelers need to restore that offensive line, get an influx of youth and talent and motivation for some of these guys. And I don't know. Yeah, it's probably not the worst pick, but you also have a couple other linebackers there with Vince Williams, and they traded for the other Williams from the Jets. He's probably not, or Williamson, but I don't know. I haven't done my eval on Nick Bolton yet, so maybe I love him, but I wouldn't be crazy about that pick. Jags taking Christian Barmore. Just doesn't get me excited if you're the Jags. I mean, you just took Trevor Lawrence. Give him a young tight end like Pat Freiermuth or even the Miami kid. Give him more offensive line help. The running backs are gone here, so I get that, and you do have James Robinson, so I immediately regret saying anything about running backs because I love James Robinson, but I get it. At some point, you got to restore some toughness to that defense, but I don't think it's with this pick. I would get some more help for Trevor Lawrence. Make sure he has everything he needs to succeed between offensive line and playmaking. Hey, Cleveland Browns grabbing Zaven Collins. You guys know I agree with this pick. This is the exact same pick I made in my mock draft. So I obviously agree with that. Love the scheme fit. Love the player. If you want to hear more about that, Browns fans, go check out my last mock draft. Baltimore Ravens grabbing Jalen Phillips. Where's Joseph Asai here, Bucky Brooks? I very strongly disagree with the evaluation here on Jalen Phillips. On Joseph Asai. I think you're sleeping on Asai, who to me is right there with the guy you put number 11 there, Gregory Rousseau. I think he's a much better player than Kwity Paye. Hell, I think he's a more refined, higher upside player than Azeez Ojulari. So I totally understand the need there. Jalen Phillips fits the mold. He's a great player, but he's got health concerns, a bit of a one-year wonder. I think if Asai is gone, that's a decent pick. He's very similar to some of those power rushers that they like, and he's not just a power rusher. I do like Jalen Phillips. It's just a matter of the health and the concussion history there. He had retired when he was at UCLA and then kind of got a different medical opinion, was able to come and play. So I understand the need there in the pick. Creed Humphrey, again, still available here. There's lots of other offensive line here. I would take Creed Humphrey. I would either take a receiver before Jalen Phillips, Joseph Asai gone. I would be fine with this pick. It'd get like a C+ or a B-, but I think there's much better directions they could go than Jalen Phillips there, especially for a team that's so good at developing that position right there at edge. Saints grabbing Trayvon Moehrig. I have not done a lot of safety evals yet, so I'm going to be honest there. This is in a world where they lose Marcus Williams. You're getting older there with Malcolm Jenkins, so I understand that. Definitely a need for the Saints. You could potentially talk about converting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson if you really wanted to, but I'd be fine with this pick. I think I'll like Trayvon Moehrig when I get to that eval, so I'm not gonna bag on that. That's fine. Packers taking Jalen Mayfield. That's interesting. It could work. They're a team that understands the value of depth at offensive line. You do still have Wagner under contract next year. Billy Turner filled in valiantly at tackle. I think like John Runyon, who they took out of Michigan last year, ironically. So I could see it, but to not go receiver, to not go corner here, like an Asante Samuel Jr. right there, like would be great. You got receivers available. It'd just be a pretty freaking uninspiring pick for the Packers, but that's kind of what the Packers do. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did it. I would say if they did do that, pretty freaking bad pick, because that's your deepest position group is offensive line. And I know there's some guys that aren't long-term answers there, especially at right tackle and at right guard. But, Mayfield to me is not even the best tackle available right now. That's Samuel Cosme. And Mayfield would probably start at right guard if they did draft him. But, yeah, man, he's kind of a thick mauler. He's not a great athlete. I would give this pick a pretty bad grade. But, again, this is what the Packers do. They underwhelm in the first round, so maybe Bucky is anticipating that. Yet again, Buffalo Bills grab Carlos Basham. Extremely redundant with A.J. Epinesa there. Extremely redundant. I like Carlos Basham. They do need some edge help. But again, Bucky, where is Joseph Asai? Oh, you got Joseph Asai going to the Super Bowl champion Bucks. I don't know. I think the Bills need upside at pass rush, not a guy that's just going to be A.J. Epinesa. I think that's a pretty freaking bad pick right there. Kansas City Chiefs grabbing Kadarius Toney. Yikes. Not yikes. That would be incredible if the Chiefs pulled that off. I think with a Cosme there out of Texas and some of these other offensive linemen, I think that'd be even a better use of resources, but I would not be against the Chiefs adding another elite separator like Kadarius Toney. Chiefs, good luck covering those Chiefs. And then the Bucs grabbing Joseph Asai. Just what a steal. If they were to lose Shaq Barrett, I can't think of a better player to replace him with than Joseph Asai. I think Shaq Barrett is actually a decent comparison for Joseph Asai, so that'd be an A+ pick. I don't see that happening. That'd be incredible value for the Bucs, who have been just crushing it in the draft lately. But there's my breakdown of Bucky Book's mock draft. That was fun to do. I'm probably going to do more of these. I really enjoyed this, and I thought it was a good process, good thought experiment. Please do hit that like button down below. Let me know in your comments down below what you think of Bucky Brooks' mock draft. Cheers, guys, and we'll see you later. Peace.